In 1967, Marlon Brando bought a coral atoll 30 miles north of Tahiti for $200,000. He told almost nobody. He spent the rest of his life going there to disappear. Today, it's a resort where people pay $6,000 a night to try to do the same thing. That gap between buying an island to be alone and charging for the experience of pretending to be alone is the entire story. 7 levels. Let's get into it. Level 1. The private island rental. The entry point. The experience of an island without the responsibility of owning one, which, as this video will demonstrate, is a more significant distinction than it first appears. Private island rentals exist across every major tropical market: the Bahamas, the Caribbean, Fiji, the Maldives, Southeast Asia. Prices range from $5,000 to $50,000 per week depending on the island, the facilities, and the season. For $10,000 to $20,000 per week, a group of 8 to 12 people can rent an island in the Bahamas that includes a main house, beach access, a cook, and a boat. The island is private in the meaningful sense. No other guests, no shared beach, no strangers arriving on the adjacent sun lounger and asking where you're from and what you do. The island is yours for the week, then it reverts to someone else's for the next week, and you go home, which is the key detail this level is built around. And here's the honest take on island rentals. You are buying the feeling of island ownership without any of the consequences, and the consequences, as we will discover, are significant enough that the feeling alone is frequently the better deal. The person who rents a Bahamian island for a week and returns to normal life on Sunday has experienced privacy, exclusivity, and the sunset from a beach that belonged only to them. The person who bought that same island owns a maintenance schedule, a hurricane repair bill, a septic system that has opinions about tropical humidity, and a boat that requires a full-time captain who is currently unavailable because it is hurricane season and he went home to see his family. Both paid to be on the island, one of them stopped paying when they left. Level 2. The private island resort. The model where someone bought an island, built a world-class resort on it, and now rents that world to guests at prices that make the Bahamian rental look like a budget option. Necker Island, 74 acres, British Virgin Islands. Richard Branson bought it in 1979 for $180,000. After the seller reduced the price from $6 million because Branson was 28, charming, and had no money, which remains one of the more successful negotiating performances in the history of real estate. He built a resort. He lives there part of the time. He rents it to guests the rest of the time. Full island buyout runs approximately $105,000 per night for up to 40 guests. Individual villa rates when the island is in house party mode start around $25,000 per night. The island has hosted heads of state, celebrities, and a rotating cast of guests whose combined net worth at any given week would make the GDP of several small nations feel underachieving. The private island resort is a different product from the rental because it comes with infrastructure. The Brando has overwater bungalows, a spa, a research center studying the atoll's ecosystem, and a commitment to carbon neutrality that is both genuinely admirable and extremely useful for justifying the $6,000 per night room rate to guests who care about such things. Frigate Island Private in the Seychelles has 7 beaches, 2,000 giant tortoises, and a management team that has been running this island for so long they know the name of every tortoise. Whether knowing the name of every tortoise is a necessary qualification for resort management is a question that sorts people into categories. Level 3. The entry-level private island purchase. This is the level where most people who have ever casually said, "I want to buy a private island," are actually talking about, and this is also the level where the reality of that statement tends to arrive with the subtlety of an unexpected invoice. Private islands start at around $100,000 for a small undeveloped island in Canada, Nova Scotia, or the coast of Maine. For $1 million to $5 million, you can buy a developable island in the Caribbean or Central America with an existing structure and reasonable access to the mainland. The island exists, you own it, you have the deed. The deed is real. What the deed does not include is electricity, running water, broadband internet, a road, a dock that doesn't require seasonal repair, a way to get groceries without a 45-minute boat ride, and the ongoing psychological cost of owning something beautiful that is also functionally a part-time job with a tropical backdrop. Here's the thing about owning an undeveloped or lightly developed private island at this level. The purchase price is the beginning of the financial relationship, not the summary of it. Development costs: building a structure, installing a water system, generating power, creating dock access, can run $500,000 to $3 million on top of the purchase price depending on the island's location and the owner's tolerance for complexity. Then there are the ongoing costs: maintenance, staff, if the island requires security or caretaking in the owner's absence. He will either hire a management company and visit 4 weeks a year while someone else handles the operational complexity, for which works, or he will manage it himself and visit twice before concluding that the island is beautiful and also exhausting. Both outcomes are common, only one of them leads to level 4. I break down systems like this every week. Subscribe if you want to follow along. Now back to it. Level 4, the developed private island estate, $10 million to $50 million. The island that has already solved the problems Level 3 describes and presents itself as a finished product rather than a project. At this level, the island comes with infrastructure, a main residence that is not a project, a completed, designed, functioning house with real systems and real finishes, a guest cottage or two, a dock that works year-round, a water maker, solar array, or generator system that has been professionally installed and professionally maintained, staff quarters for the people who will live on the island so that you don't have to. The island is a property rather than a possibility. Picture this. A family arrives at their private island in the Bahamas. The boat ride from Nassau takes 25 minutes. The dock attendant is waiting. The main house is open. The kitchen is stocked with provisions that were ordered based on the family's preferences, which are on file because they have been coming here every December for 7 years. The children go directly to the beach. The adults go directly to the terrace. Nobody unpacks a bag because the housekeeper already did it. The island runs. The family arrived. Those are two separate operations that have been successfully coordinated. Mystique, not technically one owner, but the model is instructive. A private island in the Grenadines where a small community of property owners each has a villa and shared access to the island's infrastructure, the airport, the beaches, the Cotton House Hotel, the security perimeter that makes Mystique one of the most private inhabited places on Earth. Princess Margaret had a villa there. David Bowie had a villa there. The island's entire operating model is built around the idea that the people who live there should never encounter anyone they didn't invite. It has largely succeeded. The villas sell for $5 million to $25 million. The waitlist for new ownership is longer than most people's patience. Level 5. The private island compound. $50 million to $200 million. The point where the island stops being a property and becomes an organization. At this level, the island has permanent staff. Not seasonal staff, not on-call staff. People who live on the island year-round because the island requires continuous management and because the owner's visits, quasi-sovereign, which may be frequent or may be occasional darts, require a level of preparation that cannot be achieved by flying staff in 48 hours before arrival. The island manager is a real role. It functions like a COO role at a small company, except the company's primary product is the owner's comfort and the company's only client never complains because the company has anticipated every complaint before it arrived. Larry Ellison owns Lanai, not a house on Lanai. Lanai itself, 98% of the island, 88,000 acres, the 6th largest island in Hawaii. He bought it in 2012 for a reported $300 million. The island has 2 Four Seasons resorts, a small town, an airport, a school, utility infrastructure, and approximately 3,000 residents who are, in a meaningful sense, living on Larry Ellison's island. He has plans, solar power, sustainable agriculture, a vision for Lanai as a model of sustainable technology that is either genuinely philanthropic or a fascinating way to conduct large-scale infrastructure experiments with a captive geography. Possibly both. The owner arrives, experiences the island, and departs. The island continues running in the owner's absence because it was built to run continuously, not only when the owner is present. And if you're finding this useful, subscribe. 2 more levels. And this is where private islands stop being real estate and start being something closer to a political statement. Level 6. The sovereign arrangement. This is the level where private islands stop being real estate and start being something closer to a political statement. And the most honest place to look is not at the islands that succeeded. It is at the ones that didn't. In 2003, Dubai announced the world, an archipelago of 300 artificial islands in the Persian Gulf, arranged to resemble the continents of the Earth. Each island would be privately purchased and privately developed. The vision was a collection of bespoke private territories in the sea, 5 kilometers off the Dubai coast. Richard Branson bought an island, Rod Stewart bought an island. Several investment groups bought multiple islands. Then 2008 happened. Then the islands started sinking back into the sea. The sand was not compacting as planned. Then the buyers who had paid $15 million to $50 million per island discovered that building on a sandbank in the Persian Gulf with no utilities, no infrastructure, and no viable construction access was significantly more complex than the brochure had communicated. As of today, of the 300 islands, fewer than a handful have been developed. The rest sit in the Gulf, technically owned, functionally uninhabited, slowly being reclaimed by the water they were built from. That story, the gap between the vision of owning a piece of geography and the reality of what that ownership actually means, is what Level 6 is really about. Because the people who are serious at this level are not buying islands. They are buying jurisdictions, the Cook Islands, St. Kitts and Nevis. Territories where citizenship by investment programs give private capital a level of influence over the regulatory and legal environment that most democracies would find uncomfortable. Not private islands, private rules. That is a different and considerably more interesting product. Level 7, the final level, the artificial island, the geography that did not exist until someone decided it should. The Palm Jumeirah in Dubai, an artificial archipelago built in the shape of a palm tree, extending into the Persian Gulf over 3 years of construction using 94 million cubic meters of sand and rock. It created 520 kilometers of new coastline in a city that had approximately 72 kilometers before construction began. The Palm currently houses approximately 10,000 residents, several hotels, the Atlantis Resort, and a collection of private residences on the Palm fronds, the outer segments, that sell for $5 million to $30 million, and are technically on islands that did not exist 25 years ago. The people who live there are not living somewhere. They are living on something that was decided. That distinction is the entire point of Level 7. Marlon Brando bought an island that had been there for thousands of years. He went there to disappear from a world that already existed. The person at Level 7 is not disappearing from the world, they are building a new piece of it. Extending the map, adding coastline where there was only water, the engineering is understood. The materials are available. The only question is whether there is enough will, enough capital, and enough conviction that the geography you are standing on should be different from the geography that was there before you arrived. In international waters right now, there are people planning exactly that, not resorts. Not residences, new places governed by new rules, built on sand they will dredge themselves. Brando bought an island to escape the world. The people at Level 7 are building one to replace it. Marlon Brando paid $200,000 for Tahiti in 1967 to find somewhere the world couldn't follow. He found it. He also spent the rest of his life trying to protect it, from development, from access from the world that kept finding ways to arrive anyway. When he died in 2004, his estate turned it into the resort that now charges $6,000 a night. The world followed, it just waited until he was gone. A family renting a Bahamian island for a week and Larry Ellison owning 98% of a Hawaiian one are doing something related. Both are drawing a line between their world and everyone else's. One draws it for 7 days at a time. The other drew it in 2012 for $300 million and has been building infrastructure inside it ever since. The island was never the point. The line was. The line that says, here the rules are different. Here the world is the size I decided it would be. Here I stop where the water starts. Most people will never draw that line. Some of them will rent the feeling for a week. A very small number will spend $300 million to make it permanent. A smaller number still will dredge sand from the ocean flow or and draw the line somewhere the map didn't have room for before. All of them are answering the same question Marlon Brando asked in 1967 when he wrote a check for $200,000 and told almost nobody. Is there somewhere the world cannot follow? Subscribe. I break down how things actually work, not how the brochure describes them. See you in the next one.